Alright everybody, so what we have here is all the components that you're going to need to build your Bokashi bucket. Starting with the bucket itself, pick this up at Lowe's. This bucket has an option to where you can buy a plastic lid for it. Don't buy that lid. Buy this lid, the Gamma Seal lid. Specifically, this lid is great for Bokashi composting because it comes with a ring that fixes permanently to the bucket that has a gasket, and then also a screw-on lid that has a gasket as well. The next component you're going to need is a grit guard. Grit guards are usually used for washing your car. You put it in the bottom of a bucket in order to keep the grit from touching your sponge. But we're going to use this for another purpose, which you'll see later on. This grit guard was picked up off Amazon. Also picked up off Amazon this water faucet. Pretty simple, double gasketed with a bolt on the back. And then also picked up offline a compost accelerant. This is the magic sauce that makes this type of composting work. Next I'm going to show you how to put it all together. Alright, so step one, take a light source. I'm using my phone. Place it inside the bucket. What it's going to do is illuminate this bottom edge. Take the nut that's used for the faucet and center it up so the bottom point of that nut is about that far off from the bottom, and then make your mark. So we're going to drill this hole in 3 separate steps. First one, we're going to scribe the hole so the bit doesn't walk. And then we're going to take a smaller bit and drill it in. And then we're going to take our larger bit and bring it up to size. Now I was wallowing it out with this bit, but I realized that it was becoming uneven, so I chose to use a step-up bit to give myself a nice clean working surface. Alright, so your next step is to take your Gamma Seal lid and remove the top from it. Take your ring, place it on your bucket, and then push it down. As you can see, it's a very tight fit. Might be helpful to take a hammer to it. And sometimes it might be helpful to take a bigger hammer to it. After you got your lid on, take your grit guard, place it at the bottom of the bucket. Ensure that it is flush to the bottom. There's no gaps around the edges, and make sure it clears the faucet that you just installed. At this point you're going to want to test your faucet and make sure that the bucket is clean as well. So how we're going to do this is we're going to fill this bucket with warm water and put a cup of vinegar in with that water. Vinegar is going to help clean out the bucket and the grit guard from any dust or contaminants that it accumulated at the store. We use vinegar because we don't want to kill our compost accelerant. The bacteria inside this does not like soap at all, so keep it with the vinegar. So fill the bucket like I said, make sure there's no leaking at the bottom of the gasket, and then you should be good to go. You pour out the vinegar water solution and you can seal up your bucket and start putting compost in. So before you're ready to put food scraps in your bucket, what you're going to need to do is put a piece of parchment paper or a paper towel down at the bottom over the grit guard. This will help keep small food from entering into that liquid area of your bucket. So what I like to do is take a piece of paper or paper towel and just line it at the bottom of the bucket like so. Don't worry about the paper when it comes to composting, because whenever you dump the bucket, the paper is going to be composted as well. Alright, so guys, I'm going to show you this final product of the Bokashi bucket. My two buckets currently live underneath my sink. You want to keep these buckets out from direct sunlight because it can affect the composting inside. So basically, you have your bucket, your faucet that was installed, and the grit guard, and your lid that you installed. Set the lid aside. Take your food scraps, flick them in there, and then you spray on top of that. And seal it back up, and you're ready to go. So every week or so, you should drain your Bokashi bucket using the faucet that you installed. I store the compost tea in this jar and save it for later because you can use it. What I do is I tilt the bucket and then just drain out whatever's in the bottom. Like so. And then you should be good to go. You can use this to fertilize your plants. Just mix it with water. I do a tablespoon in a typical watering bucket. So once your Bokashi bucket becomes completely full, what you're going to want to do is make sure the lid is sealed on tight, and then set this bucket aside for 2 weeks. That's the whole reason why you have two buckets, because while that one is finalizing its fermentation, this bucket can start to be loaded, and you can start the process all over again. What I like to do with my full bucket, after it's ready to be dumped, I like to take it to a local composting facility or a greenhouse that's interested in taking in your compost, and then I wash the bucket thoroughly and then put a piece of paper at the bottom of the grit guard and then start the process all over again.